Thanks a lot for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Dara, and I'll be focusing on internal innovation channels at Garanti BBVA. Yep. But before diving in, I just want to confirm something. Can I have a show of hands on who knows the meaning of the word oxymoron? After all, English is not first language for everyone. Okay, so a couple of ones. So to define oxymoron, it's a figure of speech where contradictory items appear together, such as the living dead, or it can be also conceptualized like this. And it is true that innovation management always sounded to me like an oxymoron, because you have the word innovation, which sounds so fragile and so deeply linked with creativity, and the word management, which sounds boring, formal, etc. So when you say innovation management, it sounds a bit out of place. It sounds like an oxymoron. And after all, when you think of great innovators, you think of Steve Jobs, for example, or Elon Musk, people who break walls, break borders, people who quit colleges and work out of their garages. Of course, nowadays, we don't have garages anymore, but we have co-working spaces. But it's true that, after all, we think to young people with plenty of dreams, plenty of courage, who work with their laptops from co-working spaces. And we do not think of white-collar workers like ourselves, like banking employees, who go to their towers from 9 to 5, who have specific KPIs, specific objectives, and this really puts us as bank employees in a very different context from those young people with dreams and courage. But luckily, banks nowadays know that innovation is a must for survival. And they also know that, at least that's what they say, that employees are their best assets. It's a whole other discussion if they live up to that statement, and I won't go into details today, but the question I'd like to tackle is that, do they leverage what they say that their best assets are? Because after all, when you look at it, most banks have thousands of employees, most of them very smart people, experts in their fields, and it's not that they are dumber or less equipped than those young people with courage and ideas, but they might lack the means to realize their ideas, they might lack the courage, but they have the ideas, they have the capabilities of producing ideas. And when you give them the means and the tools to realize their ideas, you can see that there are some pretty brilliant ideas that you can end up with. But the problem is that the goal is not to realize people's dreams or ideas. The goal is to improve the profitability of our companies, to make them survive and make them grow. So I think that's where innovation management comes in, by picking which projects to prioritize and which ones to drop. We think at Garanti BBVA that there are three major goals for innovation management team. The first one is to define what innovation means for that specific company. Because companies have different sizes, they live in different environments, their strategies might be different. So, of course, we can have the generic definition for innovation, but every company should have its own definition of innovation to be able to pick which initiatives to prioritize and which ones to drop, which ones to pivot. So one of the questions that you can ask yourself for defining innovation is that, for example, do we focus on the customer, or improving efficiency does also count as innovation? Or do we focus on incremental improvements, or do we have to have moonshot projects which redefine banking, or we aim for 10 years ahead, etc., etc.? At Garanti, we thought that we couldn't make a focus on either one, so we decided to cover the whole spectrum from incremental to transformational, a couple of details a bit later on that. But after answering this question and a couple of other ones, we came up with about a dozen criteria that help us pick and choose which projects to prioritize and which ones to drop. The second thing to do as the innovation management team is to be able to get things done, is to give yourself the means to realize those projects that come in your pipeline. What I mean by that is that it's great to have hackathons, events, etc., where ideas flow, people think and find new ideas, etc. But if you can't get those ideas into real products, first of all, you are not doing anything useful, because I mean, it's nice to have the ideas, but if they don't become products, it's for nothing. And second of all, after some time, you lose interest of people who get you those ideas. And what we did at Garanti BBVA is that we created a committee, a quarterly committee, which convenes every 3 months, where idea teams pitch their ideas. Of course, not every idea is allowed to the committee. We use our criteria to pick and choose which ones we'll present. And those who are green-lighted have specific allocated resources and budgets to get work started right away. And the third thing is to find what motivates people, because people have ideas. We know that you have brilliant people working for you, but how you make them get their ideas submitted to you instead of keeping it for themselves, it depends on culture, it depends on countries, it depends on people. But what we have found out in Turkey is that prizes and money is really the last thing that they prioritize in Turkey. The first motivation is really the possibility. It's not even the recognition. It's the possibility to have their ideas realized. It's to have their idea, their product idea on the market with the brand Garanti BBVA on it. The second one is recognition, of course, being able to say, that was my idea, to help them advance in their careers. And the last, distant third, is prizes. It may be monetary or other things, but you really need to find out what motivates your people to submit their ideas to you. This is all good and well in theory, but what are the results? What have we experienced, what we saw? First, I want to dig a little bit deeper on how we cover the whole spectrum. As I said, we decided to cover from incremental to transformational, and we have deployed different channels to do that. All in all, we have 4 channels, and the first one is what we have in most companies, big companies, an idea platform where people can submit ideas 24/7. Ours was really old and clunky. It was 15 years old, and we had some ideas like, why don't we add a plant in our branches? It will be better, greener, etc. Or why don't we add fax numbers to our business cards? But these are really, these might be good ideas, but these are not the type of ideas that we want to deal with as the innovation team. So we redesigned the whole thing from scratch, and we'll be taking it live in a couple of months. It will be much more transparent, and it's designed in such a way that people won't be able to submit those basic ideas. It will have to be product and service ideas. The second channel we have is a business line specific channel where we go to a business line every 3 months, and we ask them to submit their ideas in a defined way. We pick 5 teams, and then we coach those 5 teams for 3 months to have the idea become a project with really pragmatic questions and answers. And some of them along the way die, some of them pivot, and some of them make it to the final stage. The third channel is themed workshops. If we have, as a bank, a specific theme that we want to focus on, like, I don't know, it might be AI, blockchain, or whatever, we organize a 2-day training to introduce the basics of said theme, And then we have a design thinking workshop on 2 days to have some ideas flourish. And then we take those flourished ideas into a 3-month process where we improve them, where we pivot them or we kill them. And the last one is the corporate entrepreneurship channel. It also exists in a lot of companies. What we do at Guarantee BBA is it's a once a yearly call. It takes about 6 months from start to finish. And it begins with, once again, submissions. And then we continue with a week-long boot camp where we teach lean startup methodologies. So we give them the tools to challenge themselves, to improve their ideas, and then we help them along the way to, once again, improve their ideas. So over those 4 channels, 3 are already deployed. The idea platform will be online in a couple of months. And the interesting thing is that of these 3 channels, we have 3 ideas which were approved and green-lighted, and work began on those. The interesting thing is that it was 1 project per channel, which also confirmed that having different channels for different stages of innovation, from incremental to transformational, is a good idea. And the other interesting thing is that the ideas are different in their nature as well. One is a completely new product that doesn't exist in the market. Another one is a customer experience improvement, which will radically change the way people move money. And the third one is a much longer project where we will have improved customer experience on our phone lines, and as a bonus, some cost reductions as well. So, what's the timeline on this? We began working on the definition about a year and a half ago in May. So it takes about a year to really define and put all the groundwork, all the infrastructure in place, and decide which channels to deploy, etc. And then we began to have our first ideas approved about in the 9th or 8th month, and by observing the pace at which our projects advance, I think we'll be able to take them online, the first ones online, on Q2. So all in all, it will take 2 years from scratch to having deployed projects with these methodologies. Of course, it can move faster if you have better resources, more resources, but our experience was that 2 years is what we had. So is everything running smoothly? Of course not. We continue to have problems. For example, in prioritization is a problem. Even though we have top management approval for our projects, we always have business as usual projects creeping up and trying to steal our resources, our budgets, etc. So you have to always be on the lookout for your resources and your budget. And another problem we are having is that we have people calling up and saying, oh, hey, I had that idea 4 years ago, and I see that other team taking credit for it. What's up with that, etc., etc. So having our new idea platform deployed, which will be much more transparent and with better tracking of existing ideas, we think it will happen this, but I will be, maybe next year I'll be able to tell more about what happens with that new platform. So, to summarize, 3 steps. The first one is to define what innovation means for your company based on your strategy, based on your market, etc. The second one, get the means to realize the outcomes of your hackathons, of your events, of whatever channel you will deploy. And the third one is to deploy your channels based on your strategy, based on your definition of innovation. Maybe you'll just need 1 channel, maybe you'll need 10. That will depend on your needs as well. So all in all, it really requires some groundwork to do before getting to organize events and hackathons, etc. But when you do so, if you take the time to lay the groundwork before launching events, before trying to do anything, and you will see that some really magical ideas come. And once you will be able to deploy them, it will be even better, I think. So thank you a lot for your time. And if you have any questions, we can, of course, talk later on backstage. Thank you all.